Welcome back to my monologue challenge in Pokemmo. After defeating Watson in the previous episode, I caught a Skarmory and headed to Unova to meet my third mom. If you haven't watched the first episode yet, I recommend checking it out before continuing. But first, I am confronted by two new rivals waiting in my bedroom, eager to challenge me to a Pokemon battle before I can even pick up my flying Pokemons. Bianca and her Oshawott are up first. I begin the battle by using Leer on Oshawott, and then follow up with tackling until it goes down. In my experience, this has proven to be the most effective strategy for defeating starter Pokemon in rival battles. I will use the same sequence of moves against Sharon in the next battle. In Unova there are no wild flying types available before the first gym badge to my knowledge, and I will have to pick up my Pokemons from previous regions to use these. Before I can retrieve my Pokemon from previous regions, I finally get to speak with my mother. As I leave my house, I head over to Bianca's place and find her in the middle of an argument with her father. I interrupt the argument and Bianca storms off to speak with the professor, leaving me behind with her parents. Feeling awkward, I turn and leave without saying a word to them. I then head over to greet this region's professor. After a short introduction to her expectations for us, and a journey through the first route, I get my first encounter with Team Plasma sharing their philosophy and worldview in why people should abandon their longtime partners and beloved Pokemons. As the speech ends and the crowd disperses, I find myself in a one-on-one battle with N, who has somehow singled me out in the crowd for bullying. Fortunately enough, I've had the opportunity to pick up Magikarp I caught in Hoenn along with a few other flying types. The newly evolved Gyarados can take out both N's Pokemon in one hit each. On the next route, Bianca decides to test her own progress in a battle against me. However, she is not quite ready and my Gyarados quickly ends the battle. After defeating Bianca, Sharon awaits me at the classroom and I have to battle him as well before taking on the local gym. Water beats fire, grass beats water, and fire beats grass. With this puzzle solved, it was time for the important question. Does flying beat fire? My opponent in this gym is Chili and he leads with a Lillipup, which goes down in one hit from Gyarados' bite. Next up is Pansear, and a single water pulse secures me the first badge, as well as confirms that flying does indeed beat fire. We try to move on to the next town for our next badge, but are rudely interrupted by Charon for yet another rival battle. They really overdid it with rival battles in this generation. Now with Gyarados being even stronger, and Charon barely making any progress in his training regime, we secure a quick victory, helps Bianca and some toddler with retrieving a couple of Pokemon's Plasma Stool and are finally free to catch some of our own first flying types in this region. After catching a Woobat in Wellspring Cave and a Pidove in Route 3, we set our sights on the second gym. However, when we arrive, we are confronted by N, who blocks the entrance. We have to battle him again in order to be able to challenge the gym. After finding Lenora hiding in the basement beneath the secret passage in her library, the battle begins. She leads with an Audino who manages to survive the first waterfall from Gyarados, but goes down to the second. Next up is Watchog, who does fall to a single waterfall. Her final Pokemon, Herdier, drops our attack stage by 1 with Intimidate, which is just enough for it to survive one waterfall as well. However, it doesn't do much damage and even a crit wouldn't be problematic, so we secure our second badge. After defeating Lenora and earning our second gym badge, we are alerted to some commotion in the museum. Upon investigation, we find that Team Plasma is in the process of robbing a fossil skull on display. With the help of Bird, we are tasked with retrieving the skull. As a 10-year-old character, it seems irresponsible for the adults present to leave such a task to us, but we take on the challenge anyway. With the power of my Gyarados, we quickly take down the Grunt's 2 Patrats and single Sandile and retrieve the skull. We continue our journey to Castelia City, where we find Bianca in a conversation with Iris. She asks for our help to retrieve her mana, which has been stolen by Team Plasma members. We head to their hideout and engage in a battle with them, with only 2 Sandy less on their team. My Gyarados easily takes them out and we retrieve the mana. After the battle, one of the Getsus figures delivers a monologue about their beliefs, before Bird challenged their viewpoints, which causes them to leave. With Team Plasma dealt with for now, we can finally move on to challenge the third gym. Bird leads with Whirlpeed. My Gyarados waterfall it for 2/3 of his health bar and avoid being poisoned by its poison tail, which allows me to take it out in the second waterfall. Berg sends in Levany, which I decide to send in Swellow to deal with. I take a razor leaf to the face as I switch in, but resist it so it only deals 17% and my Swellow is able to take out the Levany in one turn with Aerial Ace. Berg sends in his Dwebble as his third Pokemon, and I go back to Gyarados to take it out with 2 Waterfalls. For his last Pokemon, Swabble, I send in Swellow again, and take this one out with a single Aerial Ace as well. With that, we secure our third badge and continue on our journey through Unova. As I made my way to the desert resort via Route 4, I was challenged by Bianca and Charon, both of whom were easily defeated by my team. Next up was N. After an awkward 40 seconds in the Ferris wheel ride with him talking about his vision and me smashing my designated A button to get out of this cutscene, we were finally free to start our battle. I managed to defeat N's team, with Sandal going down to Glisker's acrobatics, Sigiglip, which was actually a Zure in disguise, going down to U-turn, and Scraggy, Darumaka, and the real Sigiglip all going down to a combination of Waterfall and Crunch from Gyarados. It was a satisfying victory, and I was finally able to head back to the desert resort where I could catch my own Sigilyph. Once this was done, I would leave Unova for now. I had preparation to do elsewhere before I could come back and challenge Elisa. Next stop, Kanto, and my fourth mom. Pokemmo is a big family and we are now about to visit the one who appears every now and then on television with news stories covering her massive family. After a short chat with her, I headed out to start my fourth journey since beginning to make this video. Oak would remind me that although I wanted to pick up my flying-type Pokemons in the closest Poke Center, I still needed a starter from him to reach that Poke Center. In return I would pick up a parcel from the Pokemart in Viridian and hand to him. Yes, I did fight my new rival in the same procedure as every region, still secured the victory. With that out of the way, I caught a Hoothoot in Route 1, Spearow in Route 22, a Caterpie in Viridian Forest and a Pidgey in Route 2. I even took the time to challenge and beat Gary at Route 22 for a second time before heading for my first badge against Brock. The Skarmory I caught in Hoenn was not bothered much by rock attacks from Broxonix and Geodude, so after a couple of Metal Claws, I had my first badge from this region as well. I would encounter and catch a Zubat in Mount Moon. I would also deal with the last few Team Rocket members before paying respect to and picking Lord Helix fossil, which I could consult in future if ever in doubt, which also concluded the Mount Moon for now. I decided to use my Noctowl against Misty's team because of its good special defense and strong early moves. Misty led with the Goldeen, which was taken out by a single extrasensory attack. Next up was her Starmie, which was faster than my Noctowl despite the level difference and managed to confuse me. Fortunately, my attack still went through, but I would have to rely on a min-max roll in order to take it out in one more turn. So instead, I decided to switch in my Butterfree, which was able to take out the Starmie with a super effective Silver Wind. Starmie would have needed to land critical hits on both turns as it swapped in and attacked to prevent Butterfree from securing the badge, in which scenario I could use Sigilyph for a slower but safer victory. Next up was the rival fight with Gary and the Nugget Bridge before picking up the ticket for SSN. Nothing truly noteworthy happened, but here you can have a break from my voice during this fed-up battle montage, I suppose. In SSN, I did only the bare minimum, and this will be sped up to 8x while I have a monologue about how I had decided to prepare for Surge. Before facing Surge, I had to defeat 3 trainers. I knew that the trainer on the left had a Magnemite with Sturdy holding a rocky helmet, and I didn't want to take any recoil damage followed by a crit shock wave, even if my Ninjask knew Dig to 2 HKO it. So instead, I decided to use Butterfree's Compound Eyes with increased accuracy to put it to sleep and take it out. Ninjask would then use Dig to defeat the other trainer's electric-type Pokemon. I didn't use Glisker because, in case anything went wrong with my planned strategy for Elisa, I needed Glisker as a backup and couldn't level it up anymore. I also considered picking up a Sherry Berry to avoid repeating the experience I had with Gardenia and Sinnoh, but ultimately decided against it because I believed I could OHKO everything except for the Magnemite, which I would be faster than even if paralyzed. And nothing could do more than 20% damage to my Glisker, even if I did proc static on something. If I believed I would be in range of a crit, I would be willing to sacrifice my Fiero to bring in Ninjask or Butterfree safely and let them deal with the rest of the fight as a backup. However, when Surge lead with Voltorb, and I got static in turn 1, I could not help but worry. So with Magnemite next, and being fairly sure AI-controlled Magnemite wouldn't pick an electric move into Glisker, I decided to U-turn into Ninjask, so I could dig on Magnemite to take it out safely. My Ninjask was barely over 50% and I doubted the AI would even need a critical hit to take me out, but this also meant I could properly anticipate that the AI would see a kill with its electric move, which I could immune with Glisker, and so I switched back. What I didn't know was that Raichu was holding a berry to minimize the damage of my dig, having already been paralyzed once, and with Raichu so low. I was certain my U-turn could take it out, but I did not want to be in this fight risking Glisker to his last Pokemon. If U-turn would have failed one more time, I would have switched to Fiero and let it go rather than risk any crit swift high rolls. With the stressed situation, and not knowing what item Elegant was holding, I made a snap decision to go Butterfree rather than Ninjask to deal with it, and not having prepared this, I wasn't sure if Bug Buzz was one shot or two shots, so I decided the increased Sleep Powder accuracy was the safer play. And this was the most stressful matchup I've had so far in this challenge. Heading back to Hoenn, I continue to progress through the storyline, taking on Team Magma by Mountain Chimney. Later, I will challenge Flannery and Norman in this region. I plan to use the TM Facade, which I get from Norman to beat Elisa with my Swellow, as it allows me to outspeed and one-shot each of her Pokemon, and I don't have to worry about being paralyzed by static as when I am using Glister. For Flannery, I have both my Gyarados with Rain Dance, and Pelipper with Drizzle as backup if Gyarados get paralyzed and within crit change of a Body Slam while I have to deal with Sun to control the weather condition in my favor. I lead with Gyarados because I don't want him to switch in on Torkoal in the Sun to get Body Slammed into paralyzed turns. It is more favorable to have to switch into Pelipper under same circumstances, as that will be enough to change the weather and I can make other switches to deal with following turns. Flannery leads with Camerupt, which body slammed me as I set up the rain. I waterfall at next turn, and with the rain boost this is enough to overwhelm the berry Camerupt is holding to survive water attacks in normal conditions, and next is Torkoal. I set up a new Rain Dance before Torkoal can even move, then get paralyzed by its body slam. But this time, I managed to string 3 waterfalls together and secure the badge. Norman Slaking is holding an eject button and I was planning to use this to my advantage by having a Pokemon which was fast and Slaking deal a considerable amount of damage to it and force it out once he sends it in rather than the boring Protect every second turn. And I had calculated how much speed EVs my Butterfree would need to do so, putting it slightly above the base stat I would assume both Shilina 1 and Slaking to be at. Norman would lead with Zangoose, which my Butterfree would have 31% chance to one-hit KO, so I decided to Sleep Powder and Bug Buzz. With Zangoose down, Slaking was brought on, and confidently enough I clicked Bug Buzz. Slaking would click Ice Punch. Slaking would outspeed. Butterfree would go down. I had made a mistake. Having to readjust to the situation, I took a moment to consider my Pokemons. Slaking still had its eject button, it couldn't be scarfed, I could force it out with Crobat. This would bring in Vigoroth that was taken out by a fly followed by a Cross Poison, and Norman would send Slaking back in. My Crobat was still faster. I had taught my Crobat fly back in Sinnoh before jumping to Hoenn the first time. Not as a preparation for Norman, but as a strong flying stab move. Now I could have used Slaking's truant ability after all. I am sorry. With Slaking down as well, I would use Skarmory to take out the remaining Lanoon and Spinda from Norman. I had won a badge, but lost my first Pokemon. Butterfree was more important to the team than you might assume. I had planned to use its Quick Dance and Sleep Powder to sweep through and break Focus Sash users, especially fighting Psychic and Dark-based E4 members in Unova. Now I need to prepare something else. Half my E4 in Unova is now unknown. Genma didn't stay in the ball back in Sinnoh Safari Zone, and Butterfree is out. Ninjask is too fragile to deal with Sash holders. But I need to move on. I put poison on my Swallow using a Wurmple in beginning area of Hoenn before coming to Unova ready for Alessa. Holding Shell Belt to negate the poison effect, I take each of Alessa's Pokemon in one facade as I planned such a long time ago and was so excited to reveal, although I already did something similar with Brawly in the past. But the joy is gone. This is pure business. I am going to make sure Butterfree did not go down in vain. All regions are now unlocked and I will be traveling between each of them as what suits my level cap from now on. For what it's worth, I did catch an Swablu and a Tropius with surf access locations and will show their IVs in the next video. Where I also plan to take on all the upcoming gym leaders, at least until my level cap is at Sinnoh Giratina fight. All up until that fight is probably just preparations, as now I have to overcome some difficult double battle scenarios where I can't rely on my partner to have my back. I hope to have entertained you a little bit with my journey and my mistakes. Please tell me how you think you would have improved on my run and what you hope to see in the future in the comments section. Until then, take care.